Welcome. I am Hannah Kimberly. I am a resident of Gloucester, the president of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, and your moderator tonight. The League is pleased to bring you all a debate among 4 candidates for 2 open seats on the Board of Selectmen. The election is Tuesday, May 9th, and early voting will start May 1st at Town Hall. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. One way we do this is by presenting candidates directly to you, the voters, in a fair and unbiased format. Now I would like to introduce the candidates in order of how they are sitting. Paul Murphy retired last year congratulations.
Thank you.
From a 32-year career in education as a social studies teacher and then a middle school administrator. He's now working for the housing nonprofit Action Inc., supervising a program that assists students aged 16 to 24 in prepping for the GED exam. Paul served on the Rockport School Committee before being elected to the Board of Selectmen in 2011. Next, we have Ross Brackett, who is well known in Rockport as the co-owner of Brothers Brew Coffee Shop. His first term on the board was spent addressing the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic and assisting the transition of new leadership in the DPW and fire department. A graduate of Rockport High School in 2008, Ross majored in business management in college. He served as a board president for Rockport Exchange, which hosts events to celebrate the town's community and culture. And next to Ross is Frank Favaloro, who is a lifetime resident of Rockport and has managed a family business, the J.M. Walsh Oil Company, for 23 years. Frank is an assistant Boy Scout leader. He recently retired from the Rockport Fire Department after 27 years as a volunteer and obtaining the rank of captain, where he was responsible for training new recruits. One of his biggest challenges was negotiating with the Board of Selectmen over the firefighters' needs and requests, which spurred him to run for selectman. And on Zoom, we have Jack Porter, who has lived in Rockport since 1974 and has served on the Rockport Fire Department for 40 years, rising to the rank of assistant chief. He owns and runs Sandy Bay Service Center and has taught automotive technology at Gloucester High School for 15 years. Jack was a member of the committee which appointed Rockport's first town administrator. Okay, so there will be no formal opening statements from the candidates, but there will be closing statements of 2 minutes each. And I'll be asking questions prepared by the League of Women Voters, which the candidates have not seen. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to speak, after which, time permitting, candidates may comment on each other's remarks or add new information for up to 1 minute. Since our goal is to include as many different issues as possible, I will ask the candidates to keep to the specific subject of each question. And of course, if you need me to repeat a question, just ask. I'm happy to do that. All right, are we ready? Great. Question 1. The town has received $2,176,640 in American Rescue Plan funding, which, according to the Finance Committee, quote, must be related and reasonably proportional to the pandemic impact identified and reasonably designed to benefit and impact the population. What would be your priorities for spending these funds? Does that make sense to everyone? Great. Mr. Favaloro, we'll start with you.
Obviously, spending those funds would have to be on pandemic-related things, but that's also there's a lot of things that because of the pandemic happened, so you could be spending on infrastructure for roads. It could be spent on the schools, education. There are tons of things that it can be spent on. Just it has to. I mean, it's a board of 5, so you would have to agree on all of those things, and there's a lot of money to be able to just to put into one category, because there are a lot of things that money can be spent on that are pandemic related. I'm going to stop right there, I think. So.
Great. Mr. Brackett?
So I can't comment if we've received all the money yet. Last I checked, we haven't received the full amount of funds. But my major focus for those funds will be for infrastructure. But for those that have attended our meetings, you know that we will be putting out a survey to the public so to get better input from what the public sees us wanting to use it for. Infrastructure would have to be deeper than, what roads and stuff like that is. The project out that we just completed would take up all those funds. So those type of projects wouldn't be well spent there. So we want to hear from the public. We'll get the input back, and then we're going to go out for it. But we just had a request come in today from the Rockport Exchange that the board will be reviewing and discussing to see if the money can be spent there. So it's ever changing the restrictions on it as the money when we received it. It's slowly opening up to different avenues that we can spend it on. So we'll hear from the public, and then we'll have discussion amongst the board in a meeting. So.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you. In terms of COVID-19 funding, I'd like to see some of those funds go to the school department. We have a whole generation of kids that have really been hurt by COVID-19 because of the Zoom and things of that nature. So I'd like to see some of that money go to the school system. I'd like to, as Ross pointed out, infrastructure. I'd like to see some of that go, some of the money go there to help with some of the roads that and other projects here in town. Some other things that I would like to see is some of the business owners. They certainly got hurt pretty significantly with the COVID-19. So I'd like to see some of the money go there. And our senior citizens, I would like to see some money of COVID-19 money go in there to help them with their situations and some of the housing that we have here.
Thank you. Mr. Porter?
Hi, thank you. I agree with what pretty much everyone said there. I would also look at the possibility of maybe spending some of those funds to set out the plot plans, the lot lines down at Long Beach. We don't have any down there, so even if we were going to do something with that, we can't really act on it until that's taken care of. The school system, definitely, being an educator, I don't disagree with that. But one thing we're really overlooking is all our town employees who worked through this whole thing and really didn't get anything extra out of it. The way I read it, there could be bonuses or allotments to them. Infrastructure, water, sewer, street repair. It goes on and on and on. It's really a small amount of money for the large amount of problems. Thank you.
Did anyone want to add anything? Sure, Mr. Ross.
Thank you. So just to point out some things, at the most recent town meeting, for those that were in attendance, we put money aside. Well, you voted for the money to be put aside for surveying of Long Beach, so that project is already underway. And the board has already looked at hazard pay, as they call it, for the emergency services. Unfortunately, the state doesn't allow it to go to volunteers. So we decided that if it can't go to all the emergency services, we weren't just going to get divvied up to the DPW and the police, which were the only ones available for it. So we decided that we wouldn't do any type of hazard pay.
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you. One other group of individuals that I would like to see some funding, if at all possible, would be the people that make their living on the waterfront. They certainly took a hit as well, so I would like to see if we could divide some of that money funding for them as well.
Thank you. We have any other discussion? Sure thing.
Yes, please. The volunteer firefighters get paid a stipend, so they're really an on-call department. Does that mean that they're excluded from this? They do get a paycheck. Just a question to the current board. Thank you.
Yeah, they were excluded. They weren't allowed to receive the hazard pay.
I would agree.
Okay, then we'll move on to question 2. As you know, the rental agreements for Long Beach end on December 31st of this year. The leases at Long Beach currently bring in $1,839,205, which is 5.2% of the town revenue. On what basis would you set the rents for the new lease? And what would you consider to be fair rent? We'll start with Mr. Brackett.
So unfortunately, we're in executive session right now, so I can't get into any of those fine details. But I can say that the board is taking a balanced approach. We have the report from the LBOC with us in our meetings, and the discussion is, balanced all around. We have to take everything into consideration, including the climate change issues, the wall. So, but other than that, I can't comment on setting the rates or anything like that. So, but the board is taking a balanced approach.
Okay, Mr. Porter?
Well, they have the inside information on that one, but if I was to do it, I would look at hiring a outside firm to come in, appraise the property properly, assess it properly, and hopefully we can get fair market rate for the property. We need to look at repairing the wall, and we need to study it all the way through, and that's where some of that ARPA money could probably be used. Thank you.
Mr. Favaloro?
Where are we? Down at Long Beach. All right, so one of my questions about Long Beach is, why is it an executive session? You guys can answer that in a minute if you want to. I mean, everybody in town is looking for answers as to what's going on down there. The way to settle it all, obviously, is you take, your houses are on that piece of property, and everybody's house is different size, so everything needs to be surveyed and measured, and everybody needs to pay their fair share of the lease, which is just the property. And then, on top of that, they should be paying taxes on their houses that are down there. So, I think that would be fair for everybody down there. For me, that's what I would push for. I don't know if everybody else feels that same way, but, I mean, the seawall needs to be repaired. The leases money could go towards that seawall, and then the property taxes could go towards the 0.5% of the town's income. So I really think that that's the way that that should go. And I don't agree on selling the property personally, so, okay.
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you. Long Beach is a process. We have to do what's best for the town, and much of the discussion is done in executive session under the law that protects the town. We will disseminate information when it's completed. This situation at Long Beach is not going anywhere soon, and we need to methodically deal with it as a town and as a Board of Selectmen, that Board of Selectmen is in charge of the situation. Long Beach clearly is a jewel for the town of Rockport. We continue to discuss and improve everything we can to protect the town, protect the beach, and this valuable resource that we have. And we always have to remember, as the Board of Selectmen, to always keep the public access to Long Beach.
We'll move on to question 3. Climate change and ocean rise are already having an impact on Rockport. What long-range planning is needed to maintain our crucial waterfront infrastructure? And how can we build cooperation and coordination with other communities with vulnerable coastlines? Do you support planning to retreat from some locations? And we'll start off with Mr. Murphy.
Global warming and climate change is affecting the town as it has affected many towns on the coastal Massachusetts. We have to work very closely with the Conservation Committee and with grants that are available through the state to make sure that we're being good stewards to the ocean and to the community of Rockport. It's a very complex situation, but it needs to be dealt with, and I know that the town will deal with it as issues arise.
Thank you. Mr. Favaloro? Climate change and ocean rise are already having an impact on Rockport. What long-range planning is needed to maintain our crucial waterfront infrastructure? And how can Rockport build cooperation and coordination with other communities with vulnerable coastlines? Do you support planning to retreat from some locations?
Yes, retreating from some location, I don't know. I think the infrastructure on the seawalls, front beach, Old Garden Beach, Back Beach, we've done a lot of work down on Back Beach to try to keep the ocean at bay. Of course, it does come across there. Long Beach is another one. That's it. That seawall is gonna have to be rebuilt if we're planning on keeping the housing down there. That's gonna have to be big infrastructure. And working with Gloucester, since there are really only one neighbor that we have, I mean, it does go all the way up the coast into Manchester and Essex and everywhere else, but we all need to work together to make sure that those infrastructures, the walls, the beaches, everything is maintained before Mother Nature takes care of it. I mean, I don't see it in our lifetime. I hope it doesn't happen, but we'll deal as it comes through. It's a very, very, very complicated thing. So we work with the conservation and everybody else, so we do what we can.
Mr. Porter?
I'll start with the retreat. I think it's too early to retreat and give up the beach, as they say. Absolutely. I think we need to look at all of the town, Marmion Way areas, down by the Coast Guard Station, the old Coast Guard Station, Bearskin Neck, T Wharf, Back Beach. All these have flooded in the past. We have to look at ways so we can mitigate all of that. Just today, I was reading that Governor Healy has a lot of money available for a lot of the communities to buy into this. And we should be able to use that leverage for us to get a proper study done, figure out what we're going to do, and mostly let's act on it. Don't wait. We need to act on this. We can't just keep kicking the can down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brackett?
So I don't support so much of a retreating in the sense of private property. Those are owned by private citizens. They know the risk, I believe. We can look at some of the town-owned property that, including Long Beach if we had to. We do own the land, we don't own the property. But certain major infrastructures we have on sea level or below sea level, so those can be, as we get down the road, hopefully move them in a safer position. For those, again, that attend our meetings and town meeting, that we are in the final stages of finishing up an MVP grant application, and that will help us assess the issues around town. But as for working with our neighbors, I think the best choice is to work with the state. They're going to have funding available as new technology comes about, new way to build seawalls, new way to, shore up structures when needed. And that's going to be our best bet is through grants and hopefully FEMA and matching. So, you're all going to have a say in that. When we get to town meeting, you're going to have to vote on matching monies. So I think that's our best bet is to work with the state. As they go forward, we move forward with them.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes, and I'd also like to say that we have a very good working relationship with Seth Moulton, the congressman, that there may be some federal funding to help us attack this problem that we have to certainly keep an eye on. So, and our state reps, Bruce Tarr and Ann Margaret Ferrante from the state level, but there's a lot of federal dollars out there that would be able to help us.
Any other discussion on that last question? Okay, we'll go on to question 4. Rockport periodically has a problem with the wastewater treatment plant becoming overwhelmed during heavy rains with the excessive runoff from storm drains, and recently there was a serious breakdown and overflow of sewage at the Dock Square pump station. How vulnerable is the sewage system, and what is your plan to improve it? And we'll start with Mr. Favaloro.
The sewer system in Rockport is already at 90% capacity in the wintertime. So, we are gonna have to start rebuilding or making the sewage treatment plant bigger through hopefully federal monies and state monies, along with town money. There is, the pumping stations, I remember them being built when I was a kid, so they are aging, you know, and everything there needs to be rebuilt. The one downtown, was getting older and they were having trouble with that. And just some personnel problems and things went awry. I don't know exactly what happened down there, wasn't in on it, so, but looking at it from what happened with the fire department, that was right after I retired that all that happened, so, because they were down there helping too. There was a lot of work, a lot of businesses got ruined. One of the churches had problems in their basement. That's a big problem we're gonna have to work on. We're gonna have to work on that soon. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Murphy?
The problem is real in that we have to make sure that we deal with it, because I know that a lot of gallons of sewage went into the harbor, and that's not good. So the sewage treatment plant, I was a kid growing up on Pleasant Street in 1973 when it was built. And I believe Letter Park sewage treatment was about the same time. So it's close to 50 years old, or about 50 years old. So it is, as Frank said, 90% capacity. So we're going to have to deal with that as a town, and it's going to be expensive, but we're going to have to deal with it.
Mr. Brackett?
Thank you. I'm going to start off by saying I'm not sure about the personnel issue that was raised, as I haven't heard anything from that, and we're still waiting to hear from DEP on the official problem that happened down there. But again, I'll refer back to town meeting, as we are already taking action for those that were there. You guys passed a funding for a study to get done. Originally, it was for $10 million to get work done, but that was reduced because that's going to add a lot of money onto the your water bills. So we went down to about $250,000, $500,000 total. $250,000 was going to be for study for all of the I&I sewer, so we can get a full picture on that. It's not so much as going to increase our capacity, but it's going to look at the issues and see where we need to fix it, and hopefully down the road we're going to have to get a whole new system in place.
Mr. Porter?
Yeah, I think we need to look at regionalization with Gloucester. They're in the process of getting, a large amount of funds, and they're going to be building a new secondary plant. And there was some talk around that possibly Rockport could join in. And by doing that, you could run the sewer down to the south end and take care of a lot of issues down there, and run it out through Folly Cove, and even right down Main Street, take care of some of the sewer systems there that are failing. So I think we need to look at regionalization as much as we do looking at repairing what we have. The system is overwhelmed. It's been overwhelmed for years, and it's just going to keep continually happening. So I think that our best bet right now is to open up a conversation with Gloucester, and let's see where it goes. Thank you.
I think that's a good idea, what Mr. Porter brings up, but my understanding is Gloucester is not interested at this point to do anything with Rockport when it comes to the sewage.
Don't look at me.
Go ahead. I'll say something.
Go ahead.
So in the sense of reaching out to Gloucester, we did. They're too far along on their project for us to be included into it. So we did already go down that route, and it wasn't viable.
Is there any other discussion on that question? Okay, we'll move on to question 5. What specific changes would you make in the way the Board of Selectmen functions? And if you wouldn't make any changes, tell us what's working so well. And we'll start with Mr. Murphy.
I think it's working great. I'm just kidding. Of course, there's complaints. Everyone And that's the great part of a democracy. You know, you can complain about things, and we hear complaints on a regular basis from citizens. I do like the Zoom aspect because it has given people plenty of opportunity to join into town government. I can remember being at selectmen's meetings in which there are four or five same people week after week. Now we have probably about 75 people, 60, 75 people per meeting. Moving forward, some of the changes that I'd like to see is maybe a hybrid situation, so the board could meet in town hall. In fact, Ross has never, as a selectman, he's been on the board for 3 years, has never been in the selectmen's meeting for a live meeting. You know, because he had joined the board during COVID. So I'd like to do a combination of that. I think communication, we always hear about communication. We could obviously do better with communication. We're going to have a new website coming up in about 6 months or so. We're putting a lot of money into that. I think that's going to improve communication and get the information out to the people. So those are some of the things that I would like to see change and improve in the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Brackett? What specific changes would you make in the way the Board of Selectmen functions? If you wouldn't make any changes, tell us what's working so well.
So again, like Mr. Murphy, I'm pretty biased, especially this past year with that new young chairman, you know. So, but overall,
Age
there's,
discrimination.
there's not many changes I'd make. I feel our biggest weakness is communication in the sense of just getting information out there to the public. I know a lot of people like to throw around the words transparency and stuff like that, and I always ask them for examples. I can never get any from them. I'm always very available and open about all topics. People come to me for agenda items, I put them on the agenda. So, but in the sense of communication, I think that's probably one of our biggest weakness, along with our overarching office issue. Is those of you know, our office has been understaffed, but starting on the 15th, we'll have a new person in there, so that'll be good. And you know, as he reached out, I can't promise you the 6 month on the website, but it's going to have civic clerk, which is going to allow for the public to pick agendas or pick committees that they want to know about, and you'll get email notifications on when those meetings will be available. And then another weakness we have right now is HR, and we're also going to get the new website's going to have civic HR, which will streamline the application process. And again, for those that were at town meeting, you know that we passed a budget item for full-time HR, which is going to help out significantly.
Mr. Porter?
Sorry. Yeah, communication obviously is the big one. Everybody talks about it. Don't know what to do about it. I'm not on the board, but they need to figure out a way to get more information out. They need to debate more at their meetings and not just read from a script. And maybe they aren't, but that's what it looks like to the public. Anytime there's something that comes up, it looks like they're looking at a piece of paper and somebody makes a motion, somebody seconds it, and there's no debate on it. That's one of the reasons why you need to be back in person and working. In a matter of a couple hours today of me making a request, we ended up with a Zoom meeting, you know, and it's hybrid and it's working. There's some bugs, no doubt about it, but it's working. I can't believe that we can't come up with a better way. So communications, you got to look at the duties that have been kind of pushed aside, the liaisons for all the different departments need to be reworked, and the Board of Selectmen need to be going to these meetings and checking in with the department heads and find out firsthand what's going on and bring that back to the board and report. I looked at the webpage several times, and this Mr. Campbell's still listed as a liaison. They're so far out of date, it's crazy. So things like that need to be looked at, need to be adjusted, need to have that personal touch with people, because it's too easy to say no on Zoom behind a keyboard. So I'd start there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask just one more sort of follow-up question to that. How would you elicit public input to selectmen? Oh. Mr. Favalora, I didn't mean to forget you.
Sorry. The selectmen, I believe that the selectmen should be more of a in-person thing, again, as we do, but I love the idea of having the hybrid, so that there's Zooms, because a lot more people will come and show up to those meetings. That big word, transparency. I mean, I don't know how to get people involved when they're making decisions down there and everybody says, what happened? Well, if you're not paying attention, you're not gonna see what happens. So it's a matter of the selectmen gotta get the people to pay attention to what they're doing if they wanna know. That's part of the transparency, isn't just on the selectmen, it's on the people of the town too. But there's gotta be a way that, being a selectman, that you can get out and push people to be involved, help you make those decisions that you really need to make. Because some of them are gonna be tough decisions coming up. There's a lot of stuff coming up that you want the people to inform you what they want, and so you can turn it right back around and inform them the way things need to go. So, I mean, I believe that the transparency is a big issue. I believe making the hybrid and making a lot more in-person, doing a lot more debating during those meetings, in the open so people can see it. I think that would get more people interested and make the meetings better, make more of the decisions. We need, like, there's an HR person, right? We have an HR person which hasn't worked in Rockport at all, mainly because she's been part-time. I've had some run-ins with that I won't discuss that, but that's one of the big things. I would really like to see the personnel board come back, so I'll stop. I know I'm out of time, so.
Thank you. Just to comment on what Mr. Porter said regarding reading from a script. I'm a writer. I like to write. I like to have my notes here. I don't apologize for that. It may come across that I'm being scripted, but I like to write things down. In terms of the motions are made, they're given to us by the town, by the Selectmen's office, and that's to protect the town from liability and so forth. So there's a form of why we have the motions already pre-given to us. But it might come across on Zoom as like we're scripted, but I'd like to be scripted. I think it means I'm prepared. Thank you.
So again, to bring up the scripted part, I hope the public would want their selectmen to be prepared. That's why we have paper in front of us, because we're prepared. We have our notes, we have our agenda, we have our packets, everything down that way. To go down the department heads, I talk to them daily, if not, every other day. So I don't know why you think we need liaisons for departments like that, but the committee liaisons, we all have them, we all go to them. Zoom actually allows us to go to them even more of them because it's easier access for us. And just one comment for the personnel board. Some of you may know that the governing bylaw was going to look at the personnel board and the bylaw, but unfortunately there's a lawsuit that came in front of us, so they had to drop that, so they weren't able to review that.
Just one more follow-up to that. How would you elicit public input to selectmen decisions? And we'll start with Mr. Brackett.
So again, if you come to our meetings, you know that I have 2 public comment sections that was started last year under Chairman Campbell, and we have beginning of the meeting, you can comment. I'm pretty lenient with letting people speak. I do only allow one round in the first one, and then I offer a second public comment if you have more comments. And in public comment, if you tell me you want to comment on an item in there, I will allow you to have a minute or 2 when that item comes available. But in the sense of soliciting more, it would be public hearings on issues that need them. And I guess, right now the biggest issue is Facebook, social media. That would allow us to have more input, but I think most of you know where social media can get us sometimes.
Mr. Porter?
Yeah, I think we need more time for public comment. I think on their webpage, it says they're allowed 3 minutes. A lot of times you can't get your point across in 3 minutes. I know it may lengthen the meetings, but that's what you're there for. You should be there to listen to the people, hear what they have to say. If you don't know the answer, find the answer, get back to them in a timely manner. Don't let it sit. That's the worst thing you can do. As long as you let things sit, the more it festers and the more problems it becomes. So I think you need more public comment for a longer period of time. Thank you.
Mr. Favaloro?
I think you do need more public comment, but you need more public comment after some of the speaking of the public comment always comes at the very beginning. But then if that's not discussed that night and there's more questions after the meeting, there is never any time after that. You have to write it down and wait for the next meeting to come. And a lot of people want to ask that question right off the bat. So, I mean, I see that a lot, that you just don't get that second round after the meeting or late in the meeting. That's something I would like to see.
Mr. Murphy?
We do have public comment after, which is, I think, a great thing, because a lot of stuff comes up in the meeting that people would like to comment after it's the last part of the agenda. So, as Mr. Brackett said, that Mr. Campbell started it, and then he's continued it, and I think it's a good thing. I think people have plenty of opportunity to comment at town meeting. Our selectmen emails are on the website. Our cell phones are on the website. If people need to get a hold of us, they do. And we're accessible. And I think, I mean, communication is important, and you can always do better at it. But I think it's pretty good right now in terms of if people need to get a hold of us, they know where to get a hold of us, and we respond. And I take pride in the fact that I return emails and phone calls and things of that nature, because constituent services is the most important part, especially at the local level, which is the purest of government, I think. So, thank you.
Sure.
Just to comment on the policy of the selectmen, it's 5 minutes max. Obviously, that can be reviewed, but that's the policy on the website. As well as public hearings, you get 10 minutes. And at the end of the day, it's at the chairman's discretion on how much time they want to give you. So if you request more time, most of the time the chairman will allow you to have that. And in the sense of the chairman, again, I think what Frank was trying to say was during the debates of the selectmen, that's where the comments wanted to come. So I don't do it. But sometimes if you raise your hand, some chairmen do allow you to comment midsection. But I always remind people that the best way to reach us is phone, email, because selectmen meetings are to do the town's business in that sense. So it is, we have public hearings for debate and stuff like that, but I always think the best bet is to reach out, and I'm always available right downtown.
You can also find us at Five Corners. You too.
Is there any other discussion on that question? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. How can the town preserve the Atlantic path for walkers when private landowners threaten to cut off access? And we'll start with you, Mr. Porter.
That, like the rest of our waterfront property, needs to be protected at pretty much all costs. From what I've been reading, there's pretty much ironclad wording in all these deeds, especially the one that's going on now at Andrews Point. We did give in on one. I don't know the particulars because it was a lawsuit, so I can't speak to that. But once you give in on one, you're going to be, you're going to be tested more and more. So we have to take all of our resources and protect that property that we all have rights to, whatever it takes. I am fully in favor of that. Thank you.
Mr. Favaloro?
For 150 years, it's been written into their deeds that there's a path in front of their house. They come to our town, they love our little town. There's a lot of little quirky things that go on in our town, and that's one of them. Now, when they get here and they want to change it, they signed a deed that said that they have a path in front of their house. It's cut and dry, and I'm gonna stand up for that. Whether I'm on the selectmen or not, I'm gonna stand up for that, so that is something that has to stay, as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you. It is thoroughly important that we make sure that people in town have access to public waterways. The Atlantic Path is a very precious path in Rockport, and it needs to remain open, and the town will fight any legal fight to make sure that that remains, and we continue to fight to make sure that that remains. The Rights of Way Committee, which I'm not sure if everyone is aware of it, but it's the main purpose is to keep these paths open so that people have access to it. And sometimes if we didn't have the Rights of Way Committee that really works very diligently to keep these paths open, if we didn't have that, sometimes people after a long period of time living on the path, generations after generations, begin to think that that's their property and they encroach on it. That's why we have the the Rights of Way Committee. So it's a very important group that works very hard in town. Please know that the town will fight in court. We will litigate to make sure that everyone in town has access to these precious spots.
Mr. Brackett?
So I'm going to start off by saying they're public walking paths. They are private property, though. It does belong to the people that own the property, but the deed says a public walking path. So that I'm not taking property away from anyone. And to start off and to move on from that, the one that the board right now has won 2 battles. So we're 2-0. We have a third one coming up. We'll see where that one takes us. But in the instance of one of them that referred to, it didn't have a deed. So that was the biggest issue, and we got a deed. Again, town meeting, you guys approved it. You accepted the gift, or allowed the selectmen to accept the gift. So that was added. I know it wasn't where everyone wanted it, but now we have a deed there for 150 years in the future. And the most recent one, we'll see there. It's I think it's stronger than a deed. I think it's called a guarantee. I can't remember exactly the term, and that's even more protected. But it's at state level right now. If they ask us for help, we're more than willing. So as I said, the current board, we fought them, we've won, and we're not going to back down.
Is there any other discussion? It sounds like everyone is in agreement. All right. The next question. Rockport's population is decreasing. What would you do to attract more families, especially young families, to live here? Would you support high-density development around the train station for affordable housing? Or what other ideas do you have for increasing the town's percentage of affordable housing? And we'll start with Mr. Favaloro.
The problem with affordable housing, especially in Rockport, is it's not affordable. It is definitely not affordable. I am against dense population down by the train station. I can see putting in houses down there. If that property gets sold, it will be private property. The MBTA might take it over to build houses, but I can't, they're talking about 650 units in one small area. That's way too much. Rockport doesn't need high-rise buildings. But there's a lot of property in town that can be used for families that the town owns. Jack brought it up actually too, that it can be leased out, just like we do for Long Beach, so people can build an affordable house to raise their family. DPW workers, police officers that are, I don't know how many of the police officers actually live in town anymore. I don't believe there's many. It's a very complex thing because the MBTA wants to take so much land down there. I know there's wells down there that we need to protect also that are tapped. We don't use them, but we may need them in the future. So we don't want to build houses near those. But there is other properties around town that could be leased, sold, worked on in that direction. I'll leave it. Okay. Yep.
Mr. Brackett?
So this is a tough question in the sense of what we can do to bring young families here. The best is to help maintain our school system so it will be attractive for families that want to bring their kids here. When I assume you say young families, I'm assuming you mean children. But again, the bottom line is housing. We have the MBT overlay. I'm not sure where he gets the 650 units in one area. That has to do with the 10% that the state needs for affordable housing down the road, and that can be existing units and it can be new construction if needed. It has nothing to do with cramming it all in one area. It can be spread out all around Rockport, and that's the goal of Massachusetts in general. That's what the whole plan is for MBTA to these communities, to allow people to work in other communities, but they can commute back and have easier access to their jobs. But again, to bring people here is that's a tough question. It's really hard. We just have to keep. I think we're on the right track. We're maintaining our schools. We're maintaining our businesses. So we have the economics here. We have jobs here for the younger children that keeps the community going. If we lose the young kids, I think we're really going to lose the community in Rockport, and that's a sad thing to see. But I just working with the state, other programs that are going to be in place that will allow us to have more affordable housing. That's the biggest blockade I think that Rockport has that allows young families to come here, or even elderly families. No one can really come here with the prices at. I think the last meeting I was at, median price was $960,000. So I don't even think a lot of people can afford that now. Even if you sell your house now, you probably won't even be able to buy back in Rockport. So.
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you. As part of a law just passed by the Massachusetts legislature, they created a housing czar role. The legislature also passed and will soon fund a category of grant called Housing Works. The purpose of this grant category is to make available to MBTA communities that comply with the housing choice regulations to fund wastewater treatment and water supply infrastructure. Those communities that don't comply won't be eligible for the funds. Obviously, we're going to need access to this type of funding for the tens of millions of dollars we're going to need to address the wastewater and water issues. This is a big reason why we can convince people to comply. There are two other categories in terms of what we need for housing is the young people. People have heard me talk about, I'm very concerned about the enrollment in the Rockport Public Schools. Enrollment is down everywhere across the country. I'm one of 7 children. No one's having 7 children anymore. 1 or 2 kids, and so you can see why the enrollment's going down. But we're out here in the beautiful part of Massachusetts, of course, right in the peninsula, in which it's a destination. So you don't drop your kids off on school choice on your way to Rockport. If we can encourage young families to come into Rockport, I think that'd be a great thing. Also, older people that are in their 70s, 60s, and 70s, we need to do something about those folks that want to stay in Rockport, but yet can't afford to live in the houses that they have. So those are some of the things that we need to look at going down the road. Thank you.
Mr. Porter?
Yes, as far as the MBTA overlay area goes down there, that's up to the Smith family and a lot of that, and the old Tadco property. That's going to be a private deal if it ever does go through, I think. So there's not really a lot we can probably say about that. But what we need to do is identify land that we can sell or lease to build more affordable housing. We own 60% of the land in Rockport, 60%, and I understand we have to protect our watershed, but there's certainly parcels that could be taken off the deed restrictions and build on them. Hillside Road, where we had all the fires last year, I believe there's 41 acre lots up there. If you split them in half, made them half acres, there's 80 sites. We need to look outside the box. We need to discover this land. We need to have meetings, get the people involved that live in that area, and really put it out there that we're going to be aggressive about this, and we want to build these places. We want people to come here for a reasonable price and put up a house that they can live in, say for 25 or 30 years. And they'd have to be a town employee of some sort, police, fire, school department, whatever it may be, DPW workers, selectmen, whatever, but lease the property to them. And then when their lease is up, they have to sell that piece of property that they built on to another town employee. Now they've built some equity, they can buy themselves a little townhouse somewheres or a condo. Maybe they want to move to warmer weather, who knows? But, there has to be a better way, and we need to start thinking of ways like this that we can identify these properties. Our schools are in tough shape. We can't sustain what we're doing down there. We
Mr.
need
Porter?
to get people in.
You-
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
I just want to add that, when we're talking about affordable housing, affordable housing can also be housing that exists here in town. It's not all new construction, but that needs to be looked at as well.
Mr. Brackett?
And again, one of the biggest issues I see is finding incentives for people to build in Rockport. I don't know what incentives we can offer. I mean, I know you have tax breaks, but people are selling prices for outrageous amounts of money. So would a construction guy want to sell his property for cheaper value because he's getting a little tax break, or sell it for the $960,000 that you can get off the top? And just in the sense of affordable housing, as you may know, again, if you go to our meetings, we have the affordable housing bylaw that just got enacted. Hopefully they can work well. We also have a private nonprofit that's getting formed in Rockport too, and hopefully they can work together to hit the issues that Rockport needs.
And now we'll go to final statements from candidates. You each have 2 minutes, and we'll start with Mr. Porter.
Well, thank you to the Cape Ann League of Women Voters and all the people that came out tonight. I appreciate it. I respectfully ask for your vote as your next select board member to help make Rockport government more transparent, accountable, and civil. By planning for long-term and short-term needs and cooperating with my fellow select board members, this will happen for Rockport. I demonstrated my energy to put into the hard work by teaching, owning a Rockport business for just about 40 years now, and being a Rockport volunteer firefighter for the same amount of time, 40 years. Hard work is into my family blood, and that's all we know, and we'll do it for you also. I offer my dedication to work hard for you, and I think that I can bring some new, fresh ideas. I moved to Rockport in 1974. I worked at a local gas station, and then I ended up meeting my wife, Kathy Anderson. We've lived in town since 1979. We've raised 2 wonderful children, my son, Andrew, who works for the Rockport DPW, and my daughter, Lindsay, but unfortunately, both of them can't afford to live in town. They were both educated here in town. In 1978, I went to work as the chief mechanic for the Rockport DPW. It's a position I held till 1984 when I opened the garage. While there, I was president of the union for the DPW workforce. In 79, I joined the fire department, proudly serving on the Sandy Bay Engine Company. I was voted by my peers to be a lieutenant, and then again voted to be captain. I was appointed by the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Fire Engineers in 2009. And I became an assistant fire chief till I retired at the age of 65. I'm looking to move Rockport forward in a way that we haven't thought much about. We need to come up with new ideas. We need to get the public involved. We need to have listening sessions throughout the town. We need to work hard at getting people into what Rockport needs.
Thank you, Mr. Porter.
So,
We'll
thank
go
you.
Absolutely, thank you. We'll go on to Mr. Murphy, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this debate this evening. I would like to extend a thank you to all those individuals who came here this evening to hear the candidates speak on issues pertaining to Rockport. I appreciate your interest in town government. I would also be remiss if I did not thank Frank Favalora, Jack Porter, and Ross Brackett. I am grateful for your willingness to throw your hat into the political arena. As you know, it's not always easy. As stated earlier this evening, I have been honored to be elected by my fellow townspeople on the Select Board and, before that, the School Committee. I consider it a distinct privilege to serve my town and always have strived to live up to the trust that voters have placed in me. During my tenure on the Select Board, I have pledged to be accessible to all constituents in person, by phone, or email. I consider constituent services as my #1 priority. Over the years, as a member of the Select Board, I weigh my votes very carefully. I have had a good working relationship with other board members and various town departments. It has not always been easy when controversial issues arise, but it's part of the job, and I don't shy away from it. My goal is always to serve the best interest of the town in a manner that is thoughtful, respectful, and professional. I believe I've been a steady hand on the board. I absolutely have no conflict of interest by serving on the board, meaning I do not have any family members working for the town departments, which in turn would make me have to recuse myself from any business that came in front of the board from those departments. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions. My email address is paulfmurphy7@gmail.com, or my cellular phone at 508-314-6150. I have never and never will take your trust for granted. I like to think I must consistently earn it. As a candidate for re-election to the Select Board, I once again ask you for your support on Tuesday, May 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brackett?
All right. As you saw, those two gentlemen before me talked on a piece of paper. Might have been scripted, if some would say, but I'll start off by saying I'll talk about myself a little bit. When I joined the board, I hit the ground running, and my biggest strength, I feel, is that I'm involved. I'm involved in many aspects of the town, the departments, and I talk to the departments head daily, as I mentioned earlier. I go in daily to the town hall to get updates, to learn issues. Most recently, the paving. I was in there every day asking issues with the DPW director, always responsive. And then I always reach out to the public as much as I can. And I'm always available almost 24/7 down the coffee shop. All you gotta do is knock on that door, ask one of the girls, they'll grab me out back. I'll come right out and talk. I don't shy away from topics. One of the downsides is I'm gonna give you the honest answer, even if it's the answer that I know you don't want, but I'm still gonna let you know that that's the answer you're gonna get. And again, the strength is just constantly involved with hiring at the town hall to being the liaisons to the departments. And I learn every aspect I can of every aspect of the committees. We have, one of the hot topics right now that's going to be coming before us, I feel, is solar panels in the historical district. Right now I'm working with Jimmy Ugoni to figure out if we want to present a warrant article to town meeting, or if we want to go down, have the historical committee make up a policy that would be brought forward and hopefully make it look nice in the historical district, as their job is to make a balanced approach to climate action in that area. So again, thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you to everyone that joined us today. And I ask you for your vote through May 1st, starting up all the way to May 9th. You have the ability to vote. And I hope you check that top box. Thank you.
Mr. Favaloro?
Again, like everybody else, thank you for inviting us to the League of Women Voters. Thank you, everybody in the audience, for coming. That was very nice. My name is Franklin Favaloro. You please call me Frank, though. I'm a lifelong resident of Rockport. I've had many local jobs working. I started out working at Tux Candies and Denmark Nursing Home way back. I worked with my dad at Progressive Oil, and in 1988, my family started their own heating business, and I was a truck driver and a technician for a very long time. Until we merged with J.M. Welch Oil in 1999. A year later, my wife and I bought the business from my in-laws, and we've been operating the company for the last 23 years, and before that we were competitors, so we've done very well. I'm also the father of 3 grown children who went to school here in Rockport, and they all truly enjoyed growing up here in town. I'd like to see that continue with kids. I've always been involved in the Rockport community through Boy Scouts. I was a scout first and later as an assistant scout leader. I gave my greatest satisfaction to work with men who have gone to the careers in the Army, my own son, police department, on the state police, my nephew, and another nephew was a pilot. All through Boy Scouts. Another valuable commitment has been time as a volunteer firefighter in Rockport. I recently retired as captain after 27 years of service to the town, where I was able to train new recruits, assist, and design the new engine 2 of Pigeon Cove. I played a part in coordinating the gift drone for the Rockport Rotary Club, which there's going to be an article in the paper shortly. All right, I'm working. I'll go quick. One of the biggest challenges is negotiating with the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the fire department to make sure that the needs the need of outside individual or firm to break the company up, which was from the inside out. You guys couldn't see that, but anyways, I would be glad to serve on the Board of Selectmen so that I can ensure the town employees and taxpayers receive transparency they deserve, and I have every opportunity to ask questions about their government, and I will answer them clearly. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Cape Ann, I want to thank the library for hosting our debate, our 4 candidates for participating, the Gloucester Daily Times for covering the debate, and 1623 Studios for airing it on local television. We'll post it on the League of Women Voters CapeAnn.org, and it will show up, I'm sure, on Facebook, as it does. Remember to vote. I know everyone here obviously is going to vote because you came to this debate, but May 9th, right, starting on May 1st, before May 1st, tell your friends, tell your family members, tell strangers on the street to get out and vote. That's what the League is all about, because democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you all.